Ladies and gentlemen, the fall major seeding has been announced. I know a lot of people have opinions about who should be seeded where, what region should go where, who's better than who, yada, yada, yada. Let's go over the seeding explanation. So I consulted with Science a bit here to get the seeding to where we thought it was the most fair. And in terms of seeding, I will just use the plural we or the royal we in terms of seeding here. But it's a mixture of two groups just coming together, the esports team, and I helped them a little bit. So let's get into it. Seeding wise, let's talk about it. I just have some clip art here because, I'm lazy and I'm just going to show it this way. So obviously we see all the matchups here. Energy versus Zera, Endpoint, Renegades, Dignitas, Verdi, G2, Sandrock, FaZe versus Vitality, BDS versus Complexity, Ground Zero versus Envy, Semper versus Furia. So here's your seeding. I'm just using clip art because it's a little easier. As you can see, as a list, it's actually worked out pretty well because I was just talking to Mr. T-Bates, and I was like, here, I'll let you know what it is. And then it literally got tweeted like 30 seconds later, which is kind of funny. But, so basically, let's go over why these seeds are the way they are. So obviously, NA, it gets number 1. Then Europe has the next 2. Then NA has the next 2. Europe finishes at number 3 with 6. OC number 1 gets 7. I'll explain that in a little bit. 8 is EU number 4. 9 is SAM number 1. 10 is NA number 4. Then NA 5 and Europe 5 round out the top 12. Then we get into MENA number 1 and APAC number 1 in 13-14. 15-16 are OC number 2 and SAM number 2. So we'll start at the top. We'll start with the top 8. And this is a very easy explanation for why the top 8 is the way the top 8 is. Let me bring this up. This is your Season 8 results from the World Championship. As you can see, NA was number 1. 2 was Europe. 3 and 4 was NA and Europe, so you could go either way. I'll explain 3 and 4 seeding in a split second. Then 5 through 8 has 2 Europeans, 1 NA, 1 OCE. As you can see here, it's the same way here. We have European, OCE, Europe, all in there, and NA is there as well. So that is why that is the way it is. It's based on the last World Championship. Obviously, it's been 2 years. We have no way to actually compare of how this should be seeded, who's better than who. So why just throw away assumptions and be like, let's just go off what we have always done. The previous world champion, their region will get number 1. Even if Energy was not the number 1 seed, it does not matter. The NA team would have been the number 1 seed, whoever had the most points there. So that is why it's like that for the top 8. It's the same top 8 as the Season 8 World Championship. Now, why is Europe number 2, number 3, and NA number 2, number 4? You could go either way. There's a couple reasons why we went with 3 and 4 we have EU number 2 first. So reason number 1, it balances it out a little bit more of Europe and NA. Like NA obviously gets number 1, so we give Europe a little bit of a boost. Kind of like a back and forth draft. So Europe will get 2 back-to-back there, then NA gets 2 back-to-back. The other reason is because of who they would play. MENA is 13 seed, so they play the 4th seed. MENA's never played North America, ever. MENA plays Europe all the time. More interesting matchup in Swiss for this first round, I would say, would be NA versus MENA, compared to a European team playing MENA, where they can already play in other tournaments. So it's a little bit of balance out the seeding, and also the added benefit of that bonus of we want to see MENA versus NA in round 1. Moving on, then you got 5 and 6. So the reason why the seeds are this way for 5 and 6, NA 3 and Europe 3, well, they're going to play NA 5 and Europe 5 anyway. And we obviously do not want NA versus NA and Europe versus Europe. So we went with NA 5, then Europe 6, and then on the bottom we have NA being 11, Europe 12. We could have thrown them probably the opposite way as well, but, it doesn't really matter all that much. So the terms of seeding for Swiss in round 1, obviously that matters for matchups. Round 2 and on, basically it only matters if the game differential is tied. But also, that's probably why we give NA the advantage here. 5 is mostly because NA won the World Championship, so they get a little bit of an edge near the bottom of their picks, while Europe got a little bit of a bonus in the middle. So That's why NA gets a little bit of a boon there. It could have went a million different ways, but this is what we decided on. Next up, OC number 1, as you can see, a relatively high seed. Well, they're a high seed because they finished top 8 at the World Championships, as you can see here. Where are they? Right there. Renegades, good job. $16,000. Well done. Well done. So that's why they got that seed. But on the opposite end, they're still playing the same exact matchup. They're playing NA4. And that was always what it would be. Then we have SAM and EU are going to play each other as well. EU number 4 versus the SAM number 1. So either way, that kind of balances itself out. It's just OC gets a little bit of a higher seed in terms of game differential when they are tied. Going into round 2, they will get a little bit of a bonus there. So those kind of equal out as well. And that kind of worked out just because of how the World Championship went. That could have been different as well. So that's why that is the way it is. SAM number 1 obviously does not get a top 8 seed. They did not finish in the top 8. So that's why SAM is down there a little bit further. So then it comes down to where do you put NA5, Europe 5 versus OC number 2, SAM number 2, MENA, and APAC number 1. And I think there could be conversations around this point. We decided to put NA and Europe number 5 higher than MENA number 1 and APAC 1 because Europe and NA are the major regions that always do incredibly well when we go to World Championships. The 5 seeds are normally incredibly close to their 4 seed counterparts. So that is another reason why we put them there. MENA and APAC are untested. So it's hard to put exactly where they should go. Normally, number 1 seeds get a little bit of a boost in terms of their seed. Here we gave them a mini boost. MENA number 1 gets 13 seed. Like I think a lot of people on paper would think MENA is better than APAC. Now we have to see it in person, but we have to have a little bit of like some insight of like, all right, we think MENA is slightly better, so we'll put them a higher seed. But we didn't want to put number 1 regions as like dead last in seeds. So that's where we put OC2 and SAM number 2 because historically OC number 2 and SAM number 2 have never won a match at the World Championship. Now, technically an OC number 2 seed has, but the other OC team has not. So the worst performer in the OC team and SAM team have never won a match at the World Championships. So that is why they are the 2 bottom seeds. And because we wanted to give a little bit of a boost of like you won your entire region for MENA and APAC. Now again, with Europe 5 and NA5, those could have possibly moved down. But I think we hit a good balance of what we expect to happen versus what we wanted to give bonuses for. Like, I think there's some argument here where, like, an NA number 1 has a harder match than the EU number 1 has a harder match in OC number 2 than the EU number 2 playing APAC. But we still wanted to give APAC a little bit of a boost. Like, sure, that might be a small advantage, but at some point, you know, we just got to see it play out, right? So we'll see how it goes. Plus, like, if the EU number 2 goes 3-0 against APAC and EU number 1 also 3-0 is their harder opponent in OC number 2, the EU number 1 will still have a higher seed going into round 2 anyway. It's only if they drop games that they'll fall down in seed in just a little bit. But we're playing Swiss, so it really doesn't matter all that much because you get 3 lives. And if you lose 3 times, you're out. You got to win 3. So seeding, sure, it's pretty important, I would say, for round 1, obviously, for your matchups. Round 2, I think it plays a decent role there. But at the end of the day, you got to beat the teams in front of you. And if you lose to 3 teams that are in the top 8, 1, you shouldn't be playing the 3 best teams because, you know, those teams are going to go, like, in the 2-0 round. So you're going to be playing middle-of-the-pack teams. By the end of it, we will know who the best top 8 are. We'll get some surprising results. That is very possible to throw this all out of whack. But at the end of the day, here's the seeding for the very first round. Here's the matchups we will get. And obviously, I think the super juicy ones, as always, is NA versus Europe. So the NA 3 seed and Europe 3 seed will play the opposite region's number 5 seed. And those make some interesting games, I think. FaZe Clan versus Vitality. That one should be incredible. BDS versus Complexity, with Complexity just barely squeaking in. And same with Vitality, honestly. So BDS is a team not tested on LAN yet. And Complexity as well. They've never really been to a LAN either. So it's going to be a fun watch there. So that is why those are your seeds. It didn't matter where teams finished. these seeds were talked about before we knew where any of these teams would actually go, because you don't want to just compare it 1-to-1 versus teams. Like, I think some people might argue, well, Complexity and Furia, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, Complexity got the 5th seed in NA, and you have to punish that to some degree, and you can't just knock down an OC and Sam all the way down to the bottom. So, this is where we're at. It's time. Sweden is approaching. Swiss is going to be wild. Every single match is going to be great. I think it's, 30 games or something like that? I can't remember. I'm going to try and think off the top of my head. 8, 16, 24. I think it's 32 games maybe. 24, 30, 33 games. I think I'm right with the math. I could be completely wrong. 33 matches, best of 5s in Swiss. It's going to be awesome. And if you want to complain about seeding, feel free in the YouTube comments below. Let me know what you think it should have been. Let me know if you think my explanation at least makes sense, which I think it does. But if it doesn't, just let us know. And we're going to go on from there. Fall Major is upon us very, very soon. Definitely check it out. Twitch.tv/Rocket League. We'll see you there.